Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are opening up one of history's great cold cases. We're talking about a world-changing event that completely obliterated the ancient map and, believe it or not, set the stage for biblical history as we know it.
Dr. Donald Fowler, one of our main sources for this, calls it the greatest transfer of peoples in the history of the world. Just try to imagine that for a second. Entire civilizations, countless people, all of a sudden just up and moving, leaving a massive trail of fire and destruction behind them.
So that's the real mystery, isn't it? Who were these people? And what in the world could have caused such a total and complete collapse? To even begin to find the answers, we've got to go back more than 3,000 years, to the very end of the Bronze Age, and start piecing together the clues.
All right, so every good investigation starts at the crime scene. For us, that's the entire Eastern Mediterranean, which, at the time, wasn't some backwater. It was a thriving, bustling hub of interconnected, powerful empires.
Okay, what's just staggering when you look at this timeline is the speed of it all. Around 1250 BC, you've got these incredible powers, the Hittites, the Mycenaeans in Greece, the Minoans, they're at the top of their game. But then, in the span of just a single century, poof, they're gone, wiped out. Their cities are nothing but ash, their empires turned to dust, and even mighty Egypt is brought to its knees.
So let's be clear. This wasn't just another war. This was a total system failure. It's like the entire operating system of the ancient world just crashed, ending an entire era of human history and completely redrawing the map.
So who did it? Who were the prime suspects? Well, ancient Egyptian records point the finger at one group, giving them this incredibly mysterious name that has fascinated historians ever since: the Sea Peoples.
But here's where the case gets really tricky. You see, Sea Peoples wasn't one nation. It was more like a loose, chaotic confederation of different tribes. I mean, look at this lineup. You've got the Peliset, who most scholars agree probably became the biblical Philistines. Okay, easy enough. But then you have groups like the Shardana, and we literally don't know if they came from Sardinia or ended up going there. It is a historian's nightmare.
And this is really the heart of the problem. As Dr. Fowler puts it, we have way more questions than we have clear answers. We're looking at a picture of migrations so messy and so haphazard that we can barely even track their movements. So that brings us to the next big question in any investigation. What's the motive? What could possibly trigger a movement of people so massive that it literally ends the world? Well, investigators have pretty much narrowed it down to three main theories.
Theory number one is a giant natural disaster. You know, a massive earthquake, a monster tsunami that just wipes out all the coastal cities. It sounds plausible, right? But there's a huge problem. There's just no geological evidence to back it up. No proof of an event on that scale at that time. So, for now, it's just a guess.
Okay, theory number two is a kind of domino effect. The idea is that one group gets pushed, so they push another group, who then pushes another, and it creates this huge cascade of chaos across the whole region. But, while migrations were pretty common back then, it doesn't really explain why this one was so incredibly destructive. The scale of this collapse just feels bigger.
And that brings us to the leading theory today. This one points to a totally different kind of catastrophe, a monumental, century-long drought that caused catastrophic famine. People were on the move because they had a simple choice: move or starve. Now, this isn't just a wild guess. We actually have the receipts, thanks to modern science. First, scientists have looked at ancient sediment cores from the bottom of the Sea of Galilee, and the pollen trapped in there shows a sudden, dramatic shift to plants that only grow in very dry climates. And second, there's dendrochronology, which is just a fancy word for studying tree rings. And tree rings from this period show that trees in the region barely grew at all, a sure sign of a terrible, long-lasting drought. This drought theory also cracks a huge piece of the puzzle. Why was everybody, by land and by sea, trying to get to Egypt, of all places? It's a desert. Well, because Egypt's farming didn't depend on rain. It depended on the annual flooding of the Nile River. In a world of famine, it was the only place in the entire region that still had food.
So, the old world is in ruins. But you know what happens when old empires fall, right? It creates a power vacuum. And in this case, that vacuum would completely change the course of history, especially for one small, seemingly insignificant group of people.
I mean, just look at this comparison. Before the Sea Peoples came along, Israel was just a tiny player.
completely squeezed between these two Goliaths, the Hittite and Egyptian empires. But after the collapse, those giants were gone. The entire chessboard was reset.
This chaos created this incredibly brief, unique period of about 200 years. It was really the first and only time, all the way until the modern era, that the land of Israel was free from the thumb of some regional superpower.
And this is why all of this matters so much. Without the chaos caused by the Sea Peoples, without that resulting power vacuum, the famous Golden Age of Israel under kings like David and Solomon, it very likely never would have happened. It was a direct result of this world-ending collapse.
But just when you think we've got the whole case figured out, the story leaves us with one final, baffling clue, a puzzle that historians and biblical scholars are still scratching their heads over.
Okay, so stick with me here. We know from archaeology and those Egyptian records that the Philistines, the Peleset tribe from our suspect lineup, they settled in Canaan after the big collapse, around 1150 BC. So, how on earth is it possible that the Bible's book of Genesis talks about them being there a full 1,000 years earlier, back in the time of Abraham?
So what's the deal? Was it just a simple anachronism? A later scribe updating the text with a name that was more familiar to his readers? Or could it be a clue to a much earlier history, a piece of this ancient story that we just haven't uncovered yet? It's a final mystery that serves as the perfect reminder that when it comes to history, the case is never really closed.